My name is Nancy. I'm 35 and I work at an office. I currently live in the family home with my spouse, Matthew, and his mother. Even though I'm married, my mother-in-law's persistent bullying made our relationship miserable and never seemed to get better. When Matthew and I initially started working together, our companies were partners, so we frequently collaborated on projects. Our connection grew stronger as we spent more time together, and we started going on dates and eating out. Matthew proposed to me after a year of dating, and at the age of 32, we were married. We were simply the two of us in our happy marriage at first, and I didn't know the real Matthew. Because we both had successful occupations, we could afford to have opulent weekends filled with travel and fine meals. I saw a bright future full of treasured memories. But when Matthew's father tragically passed away 3 years after we were married, things changed drastically. Matthew, overcome with sorrow, proposed that we take up residence with his mother. I was surprised at the suggestion. We'd only been married for 3 years, and while I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, I also treasured our independence as a pair. My mother-in-law and I had a bad relationship after these things happened. Our living condition became intolerable as a result of her continuing to abuse me harshly. She surprised me by giving me divorce papers and said that it would be better for everyone if Matthew and I split up. Feeling confused and upset, I made the decision to take a break and spent a month staying with my parents in order to collect my thoughts and consult my father. I made the painful decision to file for divorce during my stay. My decision was obvious, but my mother-in-law quickly started phoning me non-stop to ask for my forgiveness and own up to her sins. It was a very difficult time in my life, one that made me reassess my relationships and my path to happiness. I discovered the value of establishing limits and putting my well-being first, despite pressure from my family while navigating these rough seas. After his father passed away, my husband Matthew showed a strong desire to remain with his mother, particularly since he is her only son. He had a strong sense of duty to look after her. "I'm her only son, so I feel like I need to take care of her as much as I can," he told me. His regret for not paying more attention to his father prior to his passing heightened his feeling of obligation. I had my doubts about Matthew's decision to move home with his mother, but I felt obligated to support him since I saw how devastated he was by his father's passing. My mother-in-law was relieved to see us when we arrived at her home shortly after. She replied to Matthew, "It's good of you to be here," and he comforted her, telling her that she didn't need to worry anymore now that they were here. She replied with gratitude, saying, "Dear, thank you. I'll look after the two of you going forward." Matthew was grateful for what she said, but when it came to me, I felt uneasy. Once we were settled in, Matthew and I went to the living room to see my mother-in-law, who had made some sweets from her bakery using her favorite almond paste. As he appreciated the snacks, Matthew's eyes lit up with a youthful enthusiasm that made me momentarily participate in his happiness. But when my mother-in-law asked me, "Nancy, are you all right?" and turned to face me with a cold expression, the mood changed. "How come you appear so lost?" Then she advised briskly that we prepare coffee to go with the pastries. "Where are the coffee pots and things?" she said snidely as I was scrambling to determine the location of items. "You really are so worthless, don't you?" "Oh gee, they're over there where the wife's stuff is," she said, gesturing to a cluttered shelf and generating more clutter in the process. Her tone was contemptuous. Her remark hurt, especially because it was baseless. Even though I'd never shied away from a task, she seemed intent to portray me in a negative light. This exchange made me question our decision to move in because it served as a clear reminder of the difficult dynamics in the home. My spouse and I used to frequently visit his mother before we lived in together. She would always say, "No need, just sit down," which essentially prevented me from going into the kitchen whenever I tried to help around the house. It appeared that she had certain preferences for how things were done, and that she didn't want outside interference. I eventually gave up trying to help, believing that it would diffuse the situation. But that didn't make things any better. Even so, it felt unjust that she would still lash out at me without warning. Once, following an especially harsh reprimand from Mom, she gave me a fierce look and said, "What's up with that look? Are you having issues?" I prayed in silence that my husband would step in, not wanting to answer directly and start a fight. I looked at him. expecting he would offer some consolation, but he seemed engrossed in his phone, as if he didn't realize how uncomfortable his mother was making me feel. That he didn't appear to notice, let alone handle the situation, was painful and disappointing. This conflict was just the start of our difficult living situation. After moving in, the problems became more common almost immediately. She stormed into our room early one morning, saying, "Hey Nancy, why are you still sleeping in?" It was barely 6 a.m. when I looked at my phone. With a little confusion, I answered, "It's only 6 o'clock in the morning," she shot back, unfazed. "So what? Not only should you get up and prepare Matthew's lunch and breakfast, but you also have a daily bathroom cleaning to attend to." I was surprised by her expectations. My spouse and I didn't usually cook lunch since we weren't early risers and frequently skipped breakfast. It was also unrealistic to clean the bathroom before leaving for work because it would be too tiring. It seemed excessive and unrealistic to expect one to wake up early in order to finish all of these responsibilities. My mother-in-law became more agitated, doubting my abilities and upbringing, while I dreaded answering her early morning requests. "Why do you simply stand there? Move quickly. What type of upbringing caused you to lose all of your usefulness?" Her scathing remarks pierced me deeply and filled me with a mixture of determination and rage. I made the decision to live up to her expectations in return. I started getting up at 6 every morning after that, and started making more complex breakfast and lunch dishes for my spouse and me, in addition to simple ones. In addition, I made sure the restroom was spotless. I was surprised to discover that I felt somewhat satisfied about keeping the bathroom tidy, and it was satisfying to keep a clean environment. My spouse was aware of my efforts and frequently thanked me for the meals and the tidy environment. However, my mother-in-law's attitude did not improve with my increased efforts. Instead, her demands escalated. One day, she would crave Japanese cuisine, only to switch to French the next, insisting on dishes like homemade pizza and freshly cooked pasta paired with red wine from upscale shops. These requests were delivered as if each meal were for a special occasion, yet they were becoming a daily expectation. The most frustrating aspect was that my husband seemed to always side with her, instructing me to adhere strictly to his mother's wishes. "Make sure you do it exactly how my mom wants," he'd say without offering to help. He completely disengaged from the tasks, leaving everything up to me. Consequently, our precious days off were consumed with preparing elaborate dinners for his mother. Moreover, she continued to critique my life choices relentlessly. "You're a wife. Why are you still working? You should be at home supporting your husband. Plus, you're getting older, and the time to have children is running out. Do you realize you're almost worthless?" she would assert daily. Her words were not only demanding, but deeply hurtful, causing me to reflect on her character and wonder about the kind of upbringing that shaped such a harsh personality. Her constant criticisms made me question the sustainability of living under constant scrutiny and pressure. One particularly stressful day, compounded by work and ongoing tension with my mother-in-law, my husband confronted me with an accusation. "My mom says you're neglecting the housework. Is that true? You never listen to me and always act defiantly. I used to appreciate the lunches you made every day, but now it's all frozen food. Do you believe what your mom says?" Of course I believe her. Why wouldn't I? Are you suggesting my mom is lying? You're acting terribly as a wife. Can't you fulfill your role properly? He snapped at me, his tone sharp and accusatory. I was livid at his lack of understanding and support. "What are you talking about? Just look for yourself. I make homemade lunches, clean, do laundry, and cook dinner every day," I protested, my frustration mounting. "I'm telling you to stop lying. What Mom says is true," Matthew retorted, dismissing my efforts blatantly. "You're acting crazy. You mama's boy, what are you even saying? You never believe me or help me with anything. What exactly do you want me to do? You're such a nuisance," I retorted as the argument escalated quickly. Matthew's face flushed with anger as he responded. The exchange marked a significant deterioration in our relationship. From that day forward, the situation at home grew even more challenging. Whenever my mother-in-law criticized or harassed me, Matthew began to echo her insults. "Hey, Is dinner ready? I just got home. Hurry up, my husband demanded one evening as soon as he walked through the door. You're so slow and useless, my mother-in-law added, her words like daggers. While they both berated me, I muttered under my breath, You're both failures. Exhausted and feeling isolated, I was left behind as they decided to go out to eat together. Never mind. Let's just go out to eat together, my husband suggested abruptly. That sounds good. Let's go, my mother-in-law agreed enthusiastically. As they left, I was completely excluded from the outing, a clear sign of how disconnected I had become from what was supposed to be my family. Each day, I endured insults and belittlement from both of them, pushing me to question the viability of staying in such a marriage. Was enduring this relentless negativity worth it? That's when life handed me an unexpected chance to change everything. As I pondered this new opportunity, I realized I didn't have to endure the toxic environment with my husband and mother-in-law any longer. Their usual taunts continued unabated. You're worthless as a daughter-in-law. I can't fathom how my son ended up marrying you, my mother-in-law scolded, with my husband smirking alongside her. Seizing the moment, I stood up, my resolve firm. I'm going back to my parents' house for a month, I announced. They both stared at me, their faces a mix of surprise and anger. What about the house? What if there's a fire? My husband exclaimed in panic. You're being incredibly irresponsible. If you're leaving, then divorce my son, my mother-in-law shouted, her anger palpable as she yanked a drawer open and pulled out divorce papers, thrusting them at me. Go ahead, sign them, she challenged. Oh, Mom, you're prepared for this, my husband remarked, clearly surprised. That's right. You have no choice but to obey us. If you don't like it, then get a divorce. This is a convenient situation, my mother-in-law asserted, convinced of her control. To their surprise, I gave them a firm response. Okay, let's get divorced then. Their shocked eyebrows widened at my hard position, but I chose to ignore it and started completing the divorce paperwork. I've completed my contribution. Kindly depart promptly, I said in a firm voice. My spouse blinked in shock, unable to make sense of the lady in front of him and the one he believed he could easily control. Was that earlier just a bluff? He murmured, not understanding that I was actually taking back my freedom and life. Matthew's behavior changed significantly when I insisted on completing the divorce. He gave me a scathing glance. Don't fumble around. I'm serious, I declared, my resolve unwavering. Matthew grabbed the divorce papers out of my hand without saying another word and quickly filled in his portion. He forcefully placed the papers onto the table. With a sour tone, he questioned, Is this good enough? It's too late to undo it, even if you want to. Oh well, this means it's over for you too, he exclaimed, attempting to laugh icily while trying to hide his dismay. It's over for you guys in my heart, my mother-in-law added. However, I told myself, it's really over for you. Immediately upon my departure, I filed the divorce paperwork. When I got back to my parents' house, I told my father everything that had happened. He was really surprised and assured me that he would help me take whatever required action. My mother-in-law started phoning all the time a month later. Hi there, you. What are your desires? In a cold tone, I replied, Now that we're strangers, don't say that, please. Matthew and I find ourselves in a challenging circumstance, she begged, sounding phony. Oh, really? I curtly said. You must find that difficult. She gave a predictable, snarky reaction. I haven't made a statement yet. I would prefer to hang up now. I want to end the call. I pushed, desperate to unplug. Hold on. I need to ask for a favor. Her voice was urgent as she begged, Can you talk to your father? After everything you and Matthew have done for me, why should I? I fired back. I apologize for that. In an attempt to patch things up, she said, I didn't realize that your father's company is an important business partner of the company Matthew works for. It came out that my father conducted business with Matthew's company while running a prosperous enterprise. We had undoubtedly talked about this before we were married, but my father-in-law wasn't well at the time, so maybe my mother-in-law didn't feel like she needed to be involved in those conversations. It seemed odd that Matthew didn't recall, but maybe he had forgotten while defending his mother and criticizing me. In response to my father's decision to end the business relationship, Matthew's employer offered to extend the contract by firing Matthew, which cost him his job. This shift in events highlighted the fallout from their deeds and the entwined fates that my departure had initiated. It turned out that Matthew had big plans to renovate our family house in preparation for our long-term cohabitation. He had taken out a sizable debt to pay for these upgrades. But because of his recent layoff, it was almost hard for him to manage the loan installments. I had been paying my fair portion of our living expenses as an employee of the company up until our divorce, which helped us stay afloat financially. Now that the divorce was finalized, Matthew and my mother-in-law were in a vulnerable position. "Matthew, why did you feel the need to modify the house to flaunt your status?" In the middle of their financial difficulties, I couldn't help but think, "You're so proud, just like your mother." With a desperate tone, my mother-in-law called out to me. She begged, "Please help me." "I apologize for my errors," she said. Sounding feeble and devoid of her customary assertiveness, I firmly said, "I'm sorry, but I can't forgive you for what you've done. It's useless if you're expecting me to assist you. Find a job instead, even if it's only temporary. I'm going to end this talk now because I think it's a waste of time." I ended the conversation and made the decision to permanently ban their numbers. I found out later that Matthew's mother was forced to sell the house because they were unable to make the mortgage payments. The house was rather new and could have easily provided my mother-in-law with a comfortable retirement. It's unfortunate that their needless luxury and bad money management contributed to such a waste. My ex-husband eventually moved to an apartment on an island where he now works part-time. This abrupt shift in their situation brought to light the ramifications of their behavior and the effect of our broken relationships. Even though they now rely on my mother-in-law's pension to get by, I've been getting ready for a big transition in my own life. I made the decision to remain with my parents till I left, rather than immediately getting a new house. I will treasure every second I have left with them till I relocate abroad, since this time is very valuable to me. I'm excited and full of hope about making a fresh start in a new nation. Even though I've had issues in the past with my mother-in-law and ex-husband, I have hope for the future. Although I don't understand why they treated me badly, I'm glad I broke things off. I might even find a fantastic spouse and look into the possibilities of getting married abroad during this new chapter in my life. I sincerely hope that my mother-in-law and ex-husband may find pleasure in whatever they choose to do in the future. I appreciate you following along, and if you enjoyed it, please think about becoming a channel subscriber. As I start this amazing trip, I'm looking forward to sharing more updates and anecdotes with you.